Once united in creative arms like two pop revolutionaries defying the ordinary, John Lennon and Paul McCartney eventually turned their artistic firepower on each other. No formal duels, just sharp lyrical shots across studio walls. To be fair to Lennon, it was McCartney who fired the first volley. His second solo album, Ram, included veiled lyrical jabs that deeply agitated his former songwriting partner. In the track Too Many People, McCartney subtly criticized Lennon with lines about people preaching practices and hinted that Lennon had squandered his fortune or opportunity by turning into the very thing he once opposed, perhaps an insincere voice in pop culture. Though Too Many People was the clearest example, Lennon suspected the album contained more hidden messages aimed at him. Songs like Dear Boy, Three Legs, and The Backseat of My Car were also interpreted as indirect digs. The album's back cover, which depicted two Beatles mating, was seen by many, including Lennon, as a symbolic jab too far. Years later, in a 1984 Playboy interview, McCartney addressed the controversy, claiming there was only a minor reference to Lennon in the album. He admitted he had been irritated by Lennon's preaching tone at the time and included a line about it in one song, but downplayed the intent. However, since the two men were no longer in communication, tensions were left to simmer, and Lennon took offense to the record as a whole. Fueled by anger, Lennon entered the studio with revenge on his mind. He began working on a response track and enlisted George Harrison, whose slide guitar contribution would become one of the most scathing elements of the song. Lennon later remarked that Harrison had never played better, suggesting he might have gone on playing forever if no one stopped him. There was likely more to Harrison's enthusiasm than just musicianship. Though he and McCartney would reconcile before Harrison's passing in 2001, the two had often clashed during the Beatles' final years. As Harrison's songwriting began to flourish, McCartney seemed reluctant to give him space, causing repeated friction. At one point, Harrison even temporarily quit the band. So when Lennon offered Harrison a chance to collaborate and take a thinly veiled shot at McCartney in the process, it's no surprise the guitarist dove in. The resulting song, How Do You Sleep, left little doubt about its target. Unlike McCartney's more cryptic jabs, Lennon's lyrics were biting and unmistakable. He even mocked the bizarre Paul is dead conspiracy theory by implying it might be true. But the harshest blow came when he dismissed McCartney's post-Beatles output, stating that his only real achievement was Yesterday, and suggesting that since the band ended, he had become just another day. In an interview with Crawdaddy, Lennon confirmed he had picked up on what he believed were messages from McCartney in Ram. He referenced lyrics that confused him and sarcastically questioned what McCartney had meant. Lennon claimed that he, Yoko Ono, and other friends all noticed the digs, insisting it wasn't just his imagination. He also gave credit, tongue firmly in cheek, to Alan Klein for coming up with the line "Just Another Day," calling him a real poet. Lennon remarked that if people missed the humor in the song, that wasn't his concern, and described the track as an angry letter sung out loud. Despite the venom, Lennon would later reflect that How Do You Sleep revealed more about his own emotional state at the time than it did about McCartney. Eventually, the fire of rivalry gave way to introspection, though the damage had already been etched into vinyl.